So, similar to the one that you had already, but what I've done with this one is that after each little assessment, we do a little drive today, whatever it is you want to work on, get you to mark it, and then we have a chat. Because we're three up here, we can see if we agree or not. Doesn't matter, it's yours. And then a reflective diary.
Yeah.
How have you found the whole thing? What you like, what you didn't like? Were you surprised by anything in a good way, in a bad way? And it'll just plot your journey. It also gives you some stuff to mark each other on. So when you're sat next to each other, you're sort of marking and just discussing what you think about things. So one for each. So I'll keep those on reserve for just now. So,
would I be better on the other side?
It's entirely up to your good self. If you stand at this side, you can see what's going on.
That's what I thought, but then I thought to myself, now if Andy's going to be doing the manoeuvre,
no, that's
fine. Looking at me, pulling faces at him.
You're ready just about where the pillar is. You're all right.
He's a big lad. He can ask you to shift. So, what would you like to do in terms of getting started today?
Well, we just have a general drive, just to understand where we're at.
Okay.
Obviously, what we think our perception of how we're doing against
cool. I mean,
what we need to work on.
Yeah, what I'll get you to do is I'll get you to mark what you think of it, and then we can compare notes, see where we're at, and that might suggest a route forward for us, or some practice regimes between you. Any particular kind of driving, or should we do a bit of everything?
Try a bit of everything.
Obviously, you don't know the area, do you? So
not very
you're happy to trust me with choice of route?
Yes, absolutely.
So if I took us out, so we did a bit of town driving, then maybe a little bit of countryside driving, then maybe a little bit of motorway driving. I don't know, maybe 40 minutes or so, 45 minutes.
Bit of everything, good.
Get yourself comfy. When you're ready, off you go. Take your time to familiarise yourself with the car.
I've set the steering wheel and seat while you were away, so I'll just get the windows demisted.
I didn't realise there was a PA55 LBC registration. I thought it was something superimposed.
No, it's real.
To everything.
Who'd have thunk it? As long as you promise to be gentle with me today, because my back's killing me.
Not too much cross-country driving.
No, none of that today. Maybe next time. So we'll go out of the car park, take the road to the left. So you're familiar with this kind of car? Have you driven one before?
It's a similar layout, the gear pattern's the same as my own car. I've got a Golf. I feel that seat warming up, that's good.
Put the heated steering on as well. Let's go to the full
steering.
All mod cons.
So it's petrol or diesel?
It's petrol. Out of the car park. Just in case you want to make any notes.
There's a sheet of paper. I didn't realise it was a green pen next to it.
Well, I'll want that one back.
You don't want it.
No, I don't want it good. To the next road on the right, please. I'll give you the directions in examiner speak.
Okay.
How do you feel about this? Does it make you nervous, or quite happy having somebody watch you drive? Two people watch you drive?
No, it's a little bit odd to start with. Get used to it.
It's not a test, there's not a pass or a fail, so it's...
I think part of it as well, even though I'm sort of familiar with the car, it's just getting used to
Oh gosh, yeah.
how all the controls feel.
Well, getting used to lots of things, isn't it? Getting used to the car, getting used to this having somebody sat next to you scrutinising what you're up to.
Yeah. Yeah, bless him.
You should really.
Must drive these guys nuts, people parking in the loading bay.
Yeah, so it's not good.
Reversal from main roads.
Yeah, looks like he's pretty much nailed it.
I did some work for Wilkinson's a few years ago and they sent it to some places.
I thought the wagon driver in you there might have made you wait back and give him a chance of a second bite in case he knew.
That's what I wanted, that's why I held back a little bit.
How would you mark that if you were an examiner? Let's say you did hold back and you did go forward again.
How would I mark it?
Right.
I don't know, looking at, I was anticipating what may happen. So I'm having to stop again.
So if you sat here as the examiner, what tells them the difference between a well thought out plan and just basic incompetence? End of the road, take the road to the right.
Could he mark it as failing to make progress?
Possibly.
Are you
If you
given the
thought you were-
opportunity to explain what you've done, or is it purely he'll review how you've driven?
I would just make it my business to make sure he knew why I was doing it.
So that's where you can bring the commentary into.
There's a cure for that, you know. The guy in the Skoda there. You just put a little squad on the corner and every third person who doesn't indicate, they just pull them from the car and execute them.
If only you could.
Have to wear masks, of course. Again, similar situation there. You're holding back for a reason.
Yeah.
Tell them why.
Yeah. Obviously they're crossing a red light, so.
Yeah. Chances are the lights are going to change, so just let him know. And then he knows the difference between hesitancy and a well thought out plan.
Yeah.
Or they haven't just seen it.
Yeah, that's right, yeah. When we get to the traffic lights at the end of the road, take the road to the left, please.
Just held back there just so I could see if this was a two-lane.
Anything that's even remotely unusual, just explain what you're doing. Like stuff like if somebody's coming the other way and they flash the headlights at you. You say, oh, do I not? It says it's not a recognised signal, but apparently, it's stuff like it's obvious to me what he means. I'm making sure it's safe and I'm going. You get all the bases covered then. To the next road on the left, please. Once we're on the new road, the first road to the right. At the end of the road, to the road to the left, please.
On this one, I'm not going to indicate left because it may confuse anyone thinking I might be going to the garage.
Well, there's no ambiguity there at all, is there?
No.
He knows exactly what you're doing and why you're doing it. Otherwise, it could just look like you forgot.
Yeah.
We want to dazzle him with our flair.
Try.
To the next road on the right, please. Similarly there, where you've taken the early position,
Yeah.
let them know what you're doing and why you're doing it.
Okay.
You'll have a good idea why you're doing it, but just reinforcing it.
Yeah.
Never hurts.
Again, coming up to this one, I'll take a position more to the centre of the road, give me better visibility around the car. Let's go, kids.
At the mini roundabout, to the one on the left, please.
Slow down in time for that. Turn it down a bit.
Yes, driver sets the temperature and chooses the music when the time comes.
Get some of Kev's pipe music. Keep the examiner away.
If it's all the same to you, I'd rather not. I'm only kidding.
Please, wouldn't it? You do what? Easy got a different test centre.
So is there anything you've kind of identified for yourself when you're driving that you've been working on? Or?
One thing that Kev helped me identify was, I think, speed coming into roundabouts,
Okay.
where I think the approach speed's correct, but it just feels like I'm leaving it too late.
Okay.
The thing I find with my car, with a Golf, it's a diesel. I've been trying to do it, I've tried it a few times, trying to keep it in the one gear on the approach to it.
Yeah.
But if I hold mine in fifth coming to roundabouts, it just chugs its heart out. So I find I have to drop down into fourth, maybe a bit further back,
That's
and then
okay.
use that as my approach gear.
When you think about it, fifth's an overdrive, isn't it? So it's
It's very high on that one of mine. So I'm going to take fourth, just give me a bit of extra control on engine compression.
and the traffic lights will turn left, please. Once we're through this little village, we'll get into a little bit of open countryside bit. This next little piece of road, once we're outside of this village, is one that I use when I'm out driving for fun. sunshine, isn't it?
Yeah, it's nice. Fresh but nice.
Don't mind being cold if it's like this. It's just been awful recently. I mean, I don't mind being cold, I don't mind being wet. I don't like being cold and wet.
No. We had a wedding down near Rufford Park, Clumber Way.
All right, it's lovely around there.
And they were saying in the afternoon, about 4 o'clock, so we were taking the pictures. Absolutely hammered down with snow. About half an hour.
That might look nice on wedding pictures, that one. Different.
I think she was too struck in a lovely wedding dress.
Yeah, that's true. I suppose.
Particularly warm.
Interesting.
Electric gate stuff.
Nice round here.
Next one.
It's nice round here. Sorry, Em. It wasn't a route direction.
I'm assuming I thought you said next right.
I fetched my wife down here one day. The A1 was shot, so it's alright, we'll go down to the wall and take it to ask him. And she said, "Ooh, can we come and look at houses around here?"
It's
No.
very
The
nice,
numbers come
but
up.
yes, it's
They're out of our price range. When you tell people who live in places like Doncaster and Pontefract and Sheffield and stuff like that, they go, but they don't realise that within sort of 10 or 15 minutes of where you live, you can be out in the countryside like this around here, can't you? And there's some beautiful
absolutely.
countryside.
there is round here.
And some of the villages that are in these areas are absolutely gorgeous.
Yeah, I come scratching around some of these roads on a weekend on my bike sometimes.
Assault 9. My scratching days are over, I'm afraid.
When I'm following something like that up a hill, I always think to myself, I wonder how well chained on that is.
When you see it coming towards you, then you know it's not that well.
I like to leave myself enough room to avoid it if it comes off.
Yeah.
Not like our friend in front there is about 3 foot from it.
It's got a lot of faith in it. Blind faith.
Could just be a complete lack of ability as well, of course. Well, let's assume it's a good driver on a bad day.
Yeah.
Let's hope it's not one of your students, Bob.
Yeah, who teaches these people how to drive?
What were you doing?
I think it's really quite ironic, isn't it, that my back injury came from a learner driver hitting me. Just saying, oh, for goodness sake.
It's Danielle with a dad. Oh, God.
It doesn't make one the same size coming the other way.
Yeah, that might be problematic. We spotted our fun though. I love this piece of road.
I was doing a course in Mere Park near Stoke-on-Trent. I took this back road, purely by accident. It wasn't the one I wanted to take, but it ended up being a brilliant piece of road. A bit like this windy, bit of hills. And
We've lost it, that's good. I like to come out this way when I'm teaching progressive driving because it's a road that you can work hard if you learn to read it.
yeah, because you've got the drops off a little bit on the edge.
Yeah.
Some nice long curves.
Yeah. Surfaces in reasonable condition. No adverse cambers.
Careful on days like today where it has been frosty and you get those dark areas where it's...
That's right. Surprising how long frost can hang around, isn't it?
It's in the shade enough, yeah. most of a good day. This is a naughty little one.
It is. Well read.
Another one up ahead. I'll see what you like this road. This is.
Indeed.
This is your commentary driver, isn't it, Bob?
It is.
I recognise it.
It's because there are so many tricky.
Challenges.
Oh, absolutely.
And a roundabout. So stuck down there.
Well spotted. When we get to the roundabout, we'll take the road to the left. Sometimes worthwhile, you know, when you're doing your reflection afterwards to perhaps ponder on what you think makes a great driver. Not a good driver, but makes a great driver.
I always worked on with my uncle was a driving instructor years ago, and I admired the way he drove. And he said, just keep it as fluid and smooth as you can.
Yeah.
So you do that, there's enough one back.
Yeah.
So hopefully, by saying the things we talked about earlier and some of the films we've watched, if you pick up the clues and try and read the road, and then hopefully you are in the right gear and what have you for the situation.
Yeah. It's,
Like this, I'm now holding in third because it is quite bendy, give me better control.
how about the brown car? Is he going to cause us an issue?
This one,
Yeah. He looked like he lost it a little bit on that other bend. That can give you a clue as well.
yeah, because
Because
it's.
if he's skipping about, you think,
Well,
oh.
we're into a dark area, so there's a chance it's going to be a little bit slippier than this section.
So either this bit's slithery, or he's not very good. Or a combination of the two.
It's not too sharp a bend, it's opening up. Yeah, because it's quite dry. On your part too, would you be able to cut that? Or have you got to keep
I
within
wouldn't. It's if there's no white line there, possibly.
Yeah.
But I would probably stick with your lane discipline the way that
Okay.
they're like you to be positioned in your normal driving position. If you're going to deviate from that, you have to have a good reason for doing it. And I would also explain to them why you're doing it.
Yeah. A bit fast into that one. Lost a bit more speed on that one.
Is there anything else you could have done?
Well, I went down third thinking that'd give me enough control, but I should have lost a bit more speed. I should have picked up actually because I seen the guy in front brake lights coming on. So I should have read a bit more into that. It was probably steeper.
So we got that little.
Yeah.
It's not an uneasy feeling, but just that little. Ooh,
Yeah, it's
more,
pushing it out rather than going round.
a little bit
level.
more gas there, might have just flattened you out.
Yeah. Okay.
Try it next time. If you know, full blown like just work. But if you're just thinking, just squeeze that little bit of gas on, that can flatten the car out and push it through in a more stable feel. Anyway, I think that's why the advanced driving methodology is better. Information, position, speed, gear, acceleration. We don't talk about acceleration on learner drivers, but it's an important factor. Because as you begin the corner, the sheer act of steering creates friction, which slows the car down.
Yeah, so you need that little bit of gas to help push it around.
Just to counteract it,
And you've got to be careful, because I was expecting in that one to be quite damp, so I didn't want to.
I mean,
Push it off the road,
I've taken you on a fairly testing route.
Well, that's good.
That's what we want. You wouldn't mind just pulling up a little bit further and getting out. What are you kidding?
Got a road junction coming up ahead, so I'm going to stay in fourth.
We'll go left when we get there.
Okay. Third and just use gentle deceleration sensor so we can hit 30 at 30.
So now there's no doubt in my mind about what you're up to.
Yeah. Back on 30.
Yeah. So you're doing everything for a reason. Taking the time to explain it to me tells me the difference between, did you forget to go up there or did you? So, it's well reasoned.
Yeah.
Same for the examiner. You sat there thinking, it looks like you know what you're doing, but do you really?
Yeah. Yes.
So after we've done the driver, we can then maybe develop a marking system.
Yeah.
So that you guys can apply it to each other while you're out practicing.
Makes sense.
A little bit further up, there's a roundabout. We can take the first exit from the roundabout, which is leading us onto the M62 westbound. remember that getting on from the thing, a very complicated situation. We'll have a chat about that later.
Yeah.
One of the most difficult things to manage, that getting on and off in traffic like that, and still keeping your space.
Yeah, it's always tempting to go for that bit of a gap you've got, but then not to impede the one that's going behind you. Just in case they do take umbrage onto your actions.
Again, it's one of those things where you could be sat here, I mean, I'm sure there's probably other things, but you could be sat here thinking, why are we doing what we're doing? It felt to me like every action that you took had a reason behind it. So what we want to do is show off. Like, tell them what we're doing and why we're doing it. Tell me what you're thinking here.
I'm thinking now, I'm just watching the position of the black box. It is just starting to close a little bit, but I'm happy it's going to remain there just at the moment.
Would you consider breaking the speed limit by a couple of miles an hour here?
No, if I was going to do anything, I'd go to lane 3. Just clear it at the moment, but I didn't see it necessary because it wasn't making enough closure on it.
Take the next exit from this road.
Okay. Okay, so I'm going to be looking to be in front of the white Arctic. Following truck, might be staying where he is, he's not making real progress on the one in front. Single lane movement for the car behind. Towards a bunch of traffic up ahead, just starting to bunch up a little bit, so I'm just easing back a little bit. I will use a signal at this point because there are quite a few close by, especially the silver one, just to make sure he's aware what's happening. Which way we're heading?
At the roundabout, I'd like you to go all the way around and into the services, please. It's the 5th exit.
Stop brakes.
There you go, watch these wagon drivers.
And they're all the same. Terrible.
I pulled out in the car there the other week and God had given me some grief.
They get some frightening speeds on you. They really do.
It was one of those things where, you know, they sat there for a long time and a gap appeared in the traffic, so you chose to take it. But with these MANs being automatic, they change up into the 5th, and then there's a huge pause. And you think, oh no! And as much as you wave to these people, they don't appreciate it.
So, I mean, people make mistakes all the time, and it's we follow around on the left side.
It was the wagon, it wasn't me.
Well, of course. Just thought I'd better remind you in case you put your wagon drive rail on and went straight ahead.
Old habits die hard.
The trucks.
I mean, people make mistakes all the time, and say, you know, I'm never bothered really if somebody goes, "Hey, I'm sorry." Hey,
Yeah.
it can happen to anybody.
Yeah.
But people get so bent out of shape so quickly. Think, "Oh my God, calm down."
They do go off.
And if we go down the bottom corner and find a quiet area to pull over, then you can relax.
Is the parking still be on here then, or?
Yeah, anywhere will do if we can find an available slot.
I'll nip in here.
Very nicely, so let's go back out. And relax. So how was that? About the same as normal? Better than normal? Worse than normal?
I don't know, but obviously I felt like I was having to try.
Oh, well, yeah, okay.
Trying to impress.
Well, I'm easy impressed.
I felt reasonably comfortable.
Okay.
I didn't feel too intimidated.
Good.
Yeah, it was good just getting used to the car, just how it handles and what have you. But I like the road. Good choice of road. Like that.
I love that little piece.
But no, there was just a couple of bits where, yeah, on the bend where braking was a bit late. I could have set it up a lot better for that one. But,
I thought he was going to put the dog in the bin. It's just...
You're not going, are you? Don't do that. I'll take it over.
I'll stop you barking.
So the one on the bend, anything else you might have done different?
I wasn't sure how you feel about the joining the motorway, whether you thought I was just holding back too much, but I just felt, because the two that pulled out behind me, the two white ones, the 4x4 and the van, I thought, well, if I try accelerating now, and they're accelerating, it might cause a bigger problem. So I thought, just hold off, let them clear, and then take the space.
Firstly, you were looking at your space. This is how it felt from this side. It looked like you were holding your space from that car. You looked, there wasn't the room to go, so you held, you were then
I
kind of
was
still
limited by
measuring.
the truck because I didn't want to get in front of him and potentially put myself in a problem.
Yeah.
So I went for that gap, and obviously just holding back for that. The two behind had decided, well, I'm going straight out for lane 2 anyway. So
I think the difference between sat here thinking, yeah, it was all right, and then sat here thinking, boy, you were really in control of that, is you talking about it. So you tell him what you're doing and why you're making the decisions. I think it was fairly obvious to me why you were doing what you were doing. But if you're telling him, it's like, oh, right, okay. He might not even seen that those two cars were bunching up, and that they had room to move over. One of them, the first one, looked like he was gonna, then he didn't. So if you're telling him that you're managing all that situation, it's like, all right, okay, you're on top of the job here. I mean, it doesn't give you any extra points, but it doesn't help to show him that you know what you're about.
yeah, I mean, I suppose if he chose to do the commentary drive all the way through, then he's having that picture painted for him anyway. But if you're not, and if you decide to do that as you go along and say, right, just to reinforce what I've done, that's why I did it, and hopefully it's going to
I would
stop that cross instead of a tick.
Yeah, even tell it's the bit where there's a lot of grey areas, and you're sort of thinking, you're telling them what you're up to, and the sort of level of detail you're picking up. You can see that you're absolutely on top of your game. So if we have a look at our marking system,
Not a favour, I've just got
I'll
glasses
let
out my coat.
All right. you don't need them for driving, right?
It is a prescription windscreen, isn't it?
It is. So we've got, I mean, the way that this normally would work, the way that we're using these forms before is we do a mark and then you do another drive and mark it again, but I don't think we need to get that. So when we got our marking key at the bottom, you see we've got A is consistently safe, responsible, brisk, business-like driving. B is responsible, brisk, business-like driving with minor lapses.
Yeah.
Important lapses at C, and D, what the hell are you doing here?
Yeah. I would say on that drive, a B.
Okay, that's good. Well, let's mark
I
it
can't
in.
put consistently safe because I know I've already made that error on the bend, so that's...
Okay. Well, the way I like to think of it, and see how this goes past, I like to think of A as being pretty much all as good as it could have been with the odd teeny little blemish, but nothing that's going to result in a minor. So you're consistently at a high standard. B, if we think of that as being L-test standard. C, not quite L-test standard, and D, you really don't know what you're doing. It gives us sort of clearer picture. We can then look for, when we look in the latter stages, to really add that sparkle to it, they're A pluses. The best it's possible for it to be. So if you want to work through that, forget the first one, but so what have we got? Taking precautions before marking the engine? Starting the engine.
So start the engine. Yeah, I thought that was good. Before you actually came out, I did walk around, check all the lights.
Okay, cool.
So use the same...
yeah.
Okay,
as long as we develop a marking system that makes sense to all of us, then we're okay.
I'll put that as a B.
Okay. So you've said B and written an A.
Written in, yeah.
Oh, well, that's an overall score, isn't it? So you're always going to have an average at some point. So
Okay.
can't have an A in everything.
Dug yourself out of that nicely. Well
Yes,
done.
thank you. So accelerate.
We could almost take all of those as one, can't we? General use of controls.
Yeah.
What do we reckon?
Well, I think an A.
Okay. Anything to add to that, Kev? Anything you've picked up? Or?
On general control, there was one general control issue that I found, and that was when we were in the town, and you slowed down to negotiate those vehicles that were parked on the downhill, turning left and right, and you wanted to sort of ascertain whether there was 2 lanes. When you eventually pulled up on the downhill start, you didn't apply the foot brake. You went straight into gear and released the handbrake. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, but on a downhill start, you apply the foot brake, release the handbrake, and then release the foot brake and accelerate at the same time. Yeah.
Well, there's lots of different thoughts on different scenarios.
Okay.
All I like to look at there is, were we in complete
We were
control?
in control. Yes, we were.
So it's like, do you use your handbrake on a hill start? I've got learner drivers who will just stop the car with a foot on the foot brake on a hill, bring the clutch up to the bite, and then let go of the foot brake, go at the gas and go. And as long as the car doesn't roll back, I don't think it matters. But it's a one to bear in mind. If you're not, again, another point perhaps you could mention. I'm not going to bother using the handbrake here because you're straight off.
Yeah.
Okay.
No, good point.
But no, I think overall the control was good. It felt smooth in the back.
Okay.
It wasn't thrown about.
No dramas.
There was no emergencies. I think that bend that you highlighted yourself, went into that a little bit too quickly.
Yeah. Yeah.
I was looking down at
That is a
petrol,
tricky
I think.
bend.
Yeah. But I should be reading the road to
That's fine,
see
mate.
that. So that's fine.
So move away, we haven't really done much moving off and stop, we've only done them once, so we'll just put a line through that and a line through all the manoeuvres because we haven't done them.
Okay, stop an emergency, we haven't done that, have we?
Which takes us down to 11 really. Effective use of mirrors before signalling, before changing direction. What do we reckon there? I'm going to mark yourself
Well, unless you spotted anything other, I put myself as an A.
there. Okay.
I was doing additional shoulder checks on the motorway. And
I've given you a couple of marks on that, Andy, I'm afraid.
okay.
Remember, you get to go second.
I know.
Yeah, I know,
Go on.
I know. Well, I did notice that a couple of times before you indicated I didn't notice you consciously looking at the mirror, the mirrors. So,
Okay.
So I wasn't over, and at one stage we went from a 60 down to a 30 into one of the villages,
Yeah.
and you didn't look in your mirrors prior to slowing down. I could feel you decelerate, but you were firmly fixed forward. There was a car that was quite close in front of us. I think maybe you were distracted by that.
Okay.
So if we look at analysing mirror use, it felt to me like you knew what was behind you at all times, but if we're sat here thinking, oh, did you check the mirror there or did you not? It can be a difficult one. So if we look at it in, which mirror would you say you used the most out of the 3?
I'd have to watch it back. I think when I'm driving, I'm looking in all 3. And again, I think that comes back to habit of us checking the door mirrors.
I think you
I'd have to look it back to see if I was
you use
honest.
this one a lot,
I would
Yeah.
agree. Yeah, the offside.
which is fine.
Yeah.
You're aware of what's happening, but a glance in that mirror can sometimes not be picked up here. So yes, you've looked, but the guy doesn't think you have.
Yeah.
Now I'm not saying move your head, and he's sometimes really flicking a glance in the mirror. All he has to do is blink and you'll miss it. So if you're going to look, have a look.
To make it sort of
Yeah.
obvious.
Not move the head thing, but
Because again,
have a look.
if you were doing a commentary, you'd say mirror, whatever. Yeah. Okay.
But that's something to be. Speaking of commentary as well, that's something to be wary of, because that's something that I observe quite a bit, where people will say they're checking it. I'm going to check my mirrors, and then they don't. So you just kind of get into the habit of saying it rather than doing it. But that's not necessarily something to mark down, but something to be aware of. I think be conscious of mirror, and I'm sure you'll keep an eye on each other.
So out of those, because there's 3 on that bit, so we've got the mirrors for signalling, changing direction. So I'll put myself, B is for change of speed?
Well, it's quite harsh. You know,
Well, I think you're probably
safe
beyond
responsible.
test standard. We could go B plus maybe.
probably
Would that work? Do you
yeah,
think?
or an A minus.
Okay. Okay. As long as it means something to you, that's the
Yeah.
key thing.
Yeah. How did you feel about me signalling and changing direction?
Do you know there was one thing. and
So
I don't-
again, it was almost until you review it back on the video,
Yeah.
you see what you actually did.
Yeah, yeah.
And we talked about this earlier because it's like when we do the sort of reflective bit. How do you think you do? Score yourself out of 1 to 10. You want to say right, I want to be 10, but I know there are going to be errors, so that's why I was maybe being overcritical. So right, I'll go for a B because I know it won't be a perfect drive. But it's at what point, where did you really make that error or didn't do it quite correct?
I think certainly the nice thing when you guys are practicing on your own, if you grade each other using this system, if you're thinking it was an A, just say it was an A, and if the other person doesn't, then it opens up a point of discussion. And as long as you're not going to end up punching each other, then you're all right.
And I suppose it's
So
if
right now he's not my boss anymore.
if you can, the trick is if you can recall that specific junction or whatever.
Yeah.
Like during the motorway, that was very specific. I know exactly what was happening.
Yeah.
Well, plus we talked about it at the time.
Well, that's why I reminded you at the time. Just remember this. I want to chat about that when we get to the end, because there was a lot of great stuff happening then. I just want to have a chat about it.
Yeah.
The fact that I've said just remember that means that you probably will.
Yeah.
You'll recall a little bit better.
So
But when you're practicing, of course, together, you can just be talking about it while it's happening.
so happy with general signalling there, Kev?
Mhm.
Just a change in
there's-
speed one,
there's,
yeah.
there's one query I've got,
Go on.
and it was whether you needed to signal or not. And it was when you overtook that parked van that was 2/3 on the road and 1/3 off in that village. There was a car coming in the opposite direction.
That's why I chose to indicate just to. Well, you should have
I
seen.
think
You should have seen I was
I think
changing
you
position.
indicated as the car sort of got to the side of you. So I had a quick look back, and there wasn't actually anything behind us. And the question I've got now, whether it's a criticism or not, the question I've got is, did you really need to indicate, and who? And I've written who here. Who were you actually indicating to? Because I don't think anybody would have seen the indication.
Yeah, because
But-
you're looking at the way because he's come round there.
Yeah.
He'd see my position in the road, so hopefully he's seen me.
But on the other
Is it
hand,
going to benefit him? Yeah.
on the other hand, I'm thinking, what does it matter?
I have that down as a discussion point under a different heading.
Do you right? Okay.
But yes, good point.
Yeah.
The whilst we're on talking about that, and this is this is just food for thought.
Yeah.
For me, we reacted a bit late.
Yeah.
That was the issue, not the signal. We didn't see it in time. It didn't cause you any issues, so I would say it's probably an A minus rather than an A. Where if we're seeing it in plenty of time, then it's maybe an A star.
Yeah.
Just a few feet further forward. If we're looking for perfection, I think we should.
Well, that's where I want to get to. So
Well, was there
A
a
minus,
requirement to indicate? I think if the timing was better,
If we
the
spotted it
hazard
earlier,
would have
yeah,
passed.
if I'd have done that,
requirement.
like I say, 30 feet further back or something,
yeah.
and I was positioned out with the indicator on rather than reacting to it, then yeah. No, that's a fair comment.
So a food for thought, I think. So giving signals where necessary, correctly and properly timed.
I'm marking the wrong one here, aren't I? Yeah, that one as an A. So correctly, properly timed. No, so we're going to have that as an A minus. Yeah?
Yep. As long as
Correctly,
you,
again, that comes under that, so it's got to be A minus.
anything that you're marking down from an A is something that you're going to work on.
Yeah.
I suppose it's just the level of. It doesn't matter if they were D's, and if I thought, oh, that was a D, and you're saying A minus, it doesn't really matter because the A minus in your head means something to work on. Appropriate
Right.
action at road markings, traffic lights, traffic signs. Traffic lights, we didn't do too many, but how did you react at those? Were they okay?
I didn't feel there were any problems. I reacted to road markings and
Traffic signs, there's a couple that took you past that were hidden, particularly the one for the bend, and then there was a.
there was a roundabout sign
That's right.
behind the telegraph pole.
Which is a very difficult one to see. So you saw that, so
Yeah.
that's good stuff. Road markings, the thing that springs to mind there is when we're turning right, and I commented on it. Like you've gone across the hatch markings to keep the road behind you clear, to
Yeah.
the side of you clear. So that all comes into that. So there's
Yeah.
a lot of good stuff there.
Okay. Appropriate action on all signals by traffic controllers, other road users. Well,
We haven't
any
really
traffic
had,
controllers, have we? So,
no, we haven't had those. Other road users, not really. Care on the use of speed?
A minus, because I've got to account for that bend.
Okay. Anything else in regard to speed?
I'll probably use the example of the heavy load. Just taking that speed off, just holding it back
Okay.
on that. Give control. Held it in lower gears a number of occasions. Like coming out of the coming into that 30 section
Okay.
where I held the gear.
Have we been within the speed limit at all times?
No, I went over by a couple of miles an hour on one stretch.
It's digital on here. You can't get away with it.
Is it? All right. No, I noticed on there. I knew I'd gone over.
It was just over.
Yeah, it's about 2.
If I was going to give you a handy hint or tip, there is, if it sneaks over, sneak it back under. Don't come straight off the gas because you're telegraphing
Yeah,
it.
because But yeah, so.
Okay, so it's something to think of.
So yeah.
I thought your speed fluctuated a little bit on the motorway. On the stretches where there was no requirement to reduce your speed or to increase your speed, you could have quite easily maintained 70 mile an hour. I noticed that you fluctuated between 63 and 69 because it's directly in front of you.
It's a digital on the thing there. Lots of things going on.
And I thought it was mainly you reduced your speed slightly to 63 when you were doing your commentary.
Is that as we were getting past all the trucks?
Yeah, and then the road opened up, and you maintained your position in the middle lane. I could see what you were doing because there were trucks that were further on, and you didn't really want to pull over, but you were at 63. Then as we got towards coming off the motorway, perhaps a mile before, you speeded up to about 69, and then you went through the motions of indicating and pulling off and adjusting your speed accordingly. But that 6 mile an hour.
This is where the commentary driving really helps.
Yeah.
If you can show them that you're doing it, it's for a reason. It's not that you're not making normal progress. You've thought about something. You have decided to do this speed. That's where it can make the difference. Otherwise, it could just look like you're not really making normal progress here.
Yeah.
So I think the commentary driving's a big help where anything non-standard's happening.
Yeah.
Where are we? We're up to 15.
So we're still happy to keep that. I'll put that as an A minus in for speed.
Yeah.
Or just think it should be B
You've still
plus.
marked it for something to. Either way, you've
Yeah.
marked it for something to have a look at.
Safe distance behind vehicles.
For that, I would draw your attention back to joining that slip road. That's a demonstration there of whether you're able to do that or not. How do you think that went?
What, onto motorway?
Could you have done that any better? Better's a bad word. It's judgment.
My judgment, I felt I'd made the right call.
Okay,
That's how you guys have.
I'm happy to go with that. What about you, Kev? I
Yeah,
think you dealt with it
I thought
beautifully.
you accelerated on nicely. You found a position on the road. You joined the motorway, and then you waited until an available space was going to the second lane.
So if we're in the realms of couldn't do it better, that's an A star. If there's nothing you could have done there that would have done it any different, then you have to mark yourself A star for that.
So I couldn't see what was behind us, so I wasn't aware of vehicles that
Yeah.
were bunching up. And all
What
the
we had
rest of it,
immediately behind was a 4-wheel drive and a van immediately behind that. And once I'd got my space, or looking for my space, these two were already coming out and aiming for lane 2. That's why I held back.
Right.
There
Okay.
was a bit of dithering going on just behind and to the right
Yeah.
of us. So that's cracking. Good stuff.
Right, so make progress by driving at a speed appropriate to the road and traffic conditions.
That's what Kev was just talking about before. But
Yeah.
if it's a conscious decision to travel at that speed because of mitigating factors, then it's okay. But the only thing that can tell the examiner that is a commentary.
Yeah,
Otherwise, it just looks random, like you just slow down because you're not concentrating.
right.
So I'll leave you to mark that how you see fit.
I'll put A minus because
Okay.
again I've got to take that bend into account.
Okay, fair enough. Were we hesitant at all, do you think? We haven't really been at that many junctions.
No.
but-
I just wondered on that one. Which bit was it? One of the last junctions we came out of the crossroads, and there was the white vehicle opposite.
Yeah.
And I did have a good check into it, and I just wondered once I'd pulled out whether it felt as if I'd been a bit unduly hesitant on that one.
Okay, let me take you a little bit further back from that situation where there was a car in front of us and he turned off
The
right
silver one,
a little bit earlier. At that point, were you aware of the red car coming on your right and the van ahead?
I'd seen the one immediately ahead of that one.
Because what we did was, I wouldn't have that down as a hesitant thing. For me, you arrived at the same time as those vehicles. I would have liked to have timed my approach to either be ahead of them or behind them, not the same time. Because if you're there at the same time, you're dependent on somebody else getting it right.
Okay.
You know, you're a professional driver, you see how often people get it wrong. So if I'm there at a different time to them, they're not an issue for me. So I would have liked to have seen the planning, or in an ideal world, an A star would have been the planning further ahead. I've got my eye on that red car, I'm going to go in front of him, or I've got my eye on that red car, I'm going to go in behind him.
Yeah.
Notch a couple of miles an hour off, they're clear, straight out. It's smooth, it's eco-safe, everything just works. So you could look at that as a forward planning thing, just that next step up.
For the one that's coming towards you on a junction, though,
Where was he positioned?
that's a difficult call, isn't it?
No, not at all. Where was he positioned?
I can't remember.
Just inside the white line. He's
Yeah,
turning right.
turning right, yeah.
So
No, that's fine.
it's that level of...
Yeah.
That takes a lot of practice. You know, you're picking probably a lot of that stuff up while you're driving your wagon because you're set up a bit higher. You're further down now. Not quite so easy to say. It's just practice. There's nothing wrong with what you did. You weren't hesitant. But we could have planned that so that it was absolutely
It's
perfect.
made a bit more
So
silky.
you were in command of the whole situation.
Okay.
Not at the mercy of some halfwit who you don't know.
Yeah.
And he's driving a van.
Yeah. Right. so-
Road junctions?
Road junctions, regard to speed and approach. Well, you could argue the conversation we've just had
Could.
could all of that one. So put A- on that one,
Okay.
and again that ties into the observation on that as to
Okay.
what's happening. Position before turning left, turning right. Cutting right in corners. Not aware I caused any problems. So
Kev, you got anything there? Anything to add? Or
No.
Okay,
I've
cool.
got to find anything on the right hand.
deal with other vehicles safe when overtaking. Well, the other real
Didn't get a chance
overtaking
to.
ones were just a couple on the motorway and some parked vehicles. So
We haven't really done enough of that, have we?
Do
Really?
meeting.
Again, we haven't really had
We'll
any
leave that.
proper
That's
meet
fine.
situations.
Okay.
Positioning the vehicle correctly during normal driving and exercise lane discipline. What do you
Yeah.
think there?
Yeah, I thought I set it all up in the
Okay.
correct way.
Kev, anything to...
No, I didn't notice anything untoward. I suspect you've got a
Well, if I'm
comment.
going to be super critical,
Yeah.
we're a bit right in the lane. Just a bit.
Here now.
No.
Right, yeah, yeah,
That is
Just,
critical.
just
We're
not
parking
quite
space.
central.
yeah.
Couple of times where we've sacrificed position a little bit. I can see why, but do you know what you're doing, or is that incompetence? I'm hanging back here just in case one of these wagons pulls out.
Yeah.
So I can see each time why you're doing it, but an explanation of why you're doing it would be
Yeah,
ideal.
there were some occasions where there were pedestrians on the side where I just went
Yeah.
more to the crown.
And there's nothing wrong with that because that's a safety thing. But let them know why you're doing it.
Yeah,
You could have
that's
just
fair.
drifted. So
Yeah, okay.
not something I'd go. But adequate clearance to stationary vehicles. We haven't really passed that many. We've passed a couple.
Yeah.
What do you reckon?
Well, certainly adequate clearance to them.
Okay, sure.
Yeah.
Pedestrian crossings.
We had a couple, didn't we?
We did.
We were stationary anyway at the first one, so yeah.
The only
Happy
one
with
that
that?
really springs to mind was that one up by Tesco's where that family were dawdling across, really. But you
And
slowed
again-
down, you adjusted your speed, you
Yeah.
selected a lower gear and
We then
allowed them to move over.
turned right, and there were people crossing the crossing, but it was still on
Yeah.
green. But you held back because you knew it might change.
Yeah.
Again, a
That was just
commentary
before
there.
the left-hand bend, I think, wasn't it?
Correct.
Yeah,
A commentary there gives this guy everything he needs to know.
yeah.
All right, I see why you're doing it.
Okay.
We haven't done any stopping.
Show awareness, anticipation for the actions of other road users.
What do you reckon?
Uh,
Are you aware of what's happening around you at all times?
I felt it was.
Okay, cool. Mark it accordingly. Use of
ancillary
ancillary controls.
Let's turn the heater on and off and what have you, so yeah.
You admit it.
Yeah.
Have you?
I'm not a great lover of this type of indicator, I must say, but that's
You
just
get used to
foxholes.
it.
Yeah,
You get
just
used to it.
foxholes,
Now,
yeah.
Normally 25 is commentary driving.
Right.
which is on the other forms, but it's pretty sure, but it's not on that one. On 2 pages for the next one.
Oh, right, yeah.
I think on the back, commentary driving 25.
Commentary and
then
show me, tell me. Yeah.
So we haven't really done any work on it, but so it's a snapshot, an idea of what you might work on, what you might not. Do a reflective log afterwards. You know what you've learned from it, what worked, what didn't work, what you're surprised at, and it gives you guys some stuff to work on before we meet up next time.
And I think that's the thing, and we said this before, but I keep touching on it, the fact that you have to mark yourself out of 10. And it is quite tricky, because you think, unless you really know you made a mess of something, you think, well, I'm sure I did that fine. And it's only like when you pick up on certain things, and you can later review it on the thing, well, yeah, I actually did that, but it felt okay at the time.
Yeah.
So that's the bit where you can raise your game, and hopefully
this is
it's
where
all
having a practice partners are great. There's no substitute for it. You can get out all the time as practice partners and just refine it, because it's the reality is that it's the training time isn't really where the learning happens. It's following it when you've reflected and thought, okay, what else could I have done there? You might come up with some extra solutions. Which is why I just want, it's your snapshot, your marking system. I don't want to say, oh no, I would have marked that a B. My job is just to perhaps enter into a discussion and say, oh, what else could we have done there? What about this? What about that? What I noticed was this. What about that? Tell me about this.
But in the same token, as we said, it is useful sometimes to have somebody with experience to say, well, actually, you could have set it up a little bit differently. Like you were saying on the approach to that, take the speed off maybe 30 yards back, indicate at this point, whatever, because you don't always realise you've maybe made that error. So sometimes we do need that bit of guidance. Yeah,
and I think it's sometimes learner drivers do too, but it's traditionally the way it's gone is, well, you made a mess of that. You should have done this, this and this. Where it's very different, I think, if I say to people, well, have you considered this? What would have happened if this had happened? If you'd done this? Oh, right, okay. And it's not as soul-destroying, as we talk about constructive criticism. It's still criticism. It's just, there's no constructive about it at all.
Yeah.
It might be well meant, but it's how it's received. It's the important thing. You could be dashing somebody's hopes. They might have thought, well, I couldn't have done that any better. And you're saying, well, it was all right. You just make people want to punch you in the face. So it's good stuff, though.
Okay.
You happy with it?
Yeah. It's,
You're glad you went first now? You get
I don't think
Kev shreds now.
I don't think it would have made any difference. I've always been very fair with Kev over the years.
Yeah.
Well, now's your chance not to.
Yeah, now's your chance to get your own.
Well, we'll swap seats.